try and get this right. I was told not to step too close to the mic. And I know our president I don't want her ringing the bell on me, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. But so first, thank you for inviting me to come and speak today. It really means a lot. As Stephanie mentioned, I'm Regina Davis. I'm one of the 2 complex managers at our Baton Rouge complex, which houses what I would consider a world-class refinery and chemical facility in Louisiana. And I'd be remiss, I know we already kind of recognized the guests, but just again to acknowledge the leaders from Exxon Mobil that have come to support me today. So thank you, folks. In particular, my partner in crime, my complex leader, Dave Lukey, who we are now running the complex as one. He has traditionally been the chem plant manager, and I've been traditionally the refinery manager, but now we are complex managers leading together. So, and I'll talk a little bit about that as I talk about some of the things that we're doing within Exxon Mobil. Before I get into the topic, though, just a little bit of a reflection on the Rotary Club and a bit of why it's kind of close to my heart, actually. So I was reflecting and thinking back for my first professional speaking engagement. That was about 15 years ago. It was in Virginia. I was still, relatively early on in my professional journey, and it was at a Rotary Club. It was a huge group of 9 or 10 Rotarians. But I will tell you, I was extremely nervous. So, I go to do this presentation, I've prepared for it, and I get halfway through and I have a literal brain freeze. I cannot think about what I'm trying to say, or the words won't come to me. And I'm looking at them, and they're looking at me, and I'm looking at them, and they're looking at me. And what still felt like, hours went by, it was probably just a few seconds. This older lady said, "It's okay, baby." And literally, that thawed me out. Brain freeze was gone, and I was able to finish. But what I reflected on, though, is that was my first experience. It could have been a really, call it traumatic experience. But because of the encouragement that they shared, because of them being so supportive, and even after I finished, just the positive words that they shared, that kind of creates a bit of a fondness for the Rotary Club. And I will be joining you guys as a Rotarian as well. So looking forward to engaging. So why am I here today? What does this whole "and" equation mean? Innovating to meet our world's demand. Well, what I'm hoping to leave you with today is a bit of where we are from a corporation perspective on really embracing the energy transition, and not just embracing it, but being a leader in the transition. And I'm going to try and bring that home to what that means for Louisiana and hopefully what that means for you as well. So if we go to the next slide. We might go to the next slide. Okay, so our chairman, Darren Woods, has coined this phrase, the "and" equation. And for me, it's probably one of the most impactful, inspirational positions that we've taken as a company. Because what it really is talking about is that society is demanding that we reduce our carbon footprint. We could debate about it, we could agree or disagree, but the voices are saying we need to reduce our carbon footprint. But there's also the other side where energy demand continues to increase. And I'll talk a little bit more about the why behind that. But you have kind of 2 pieces of a puzzle where on one end, we're looking to reduce our carbon footprint, and on the other end, we still need energy. So how do these things coexist? And a lot of people would want to say it's either or, but what we would argue is that it's an "and" equation, that this is an opportunity for us to both meet that energy demand, the increase, and continue doing the things that we need to do, but do that while we're also lowering emissions. And so that's the challenge that we've taken. That's where, again, as I say, feel like this is something that's inspirational and kind of a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, the impact that we are making and will be able to make. So if you go to the next slide, let me give you some background on a bit of our outlook. Sorry, guys. I didn't send a PowerPoint presentation, so I think that gives a little challenges. But every day, billions of people around the world benefit from the ability to heat and cool their homes, to cook food, to use modern equipment, to travel for work or even pleasure. And affordable, reliable energy is what's at the core of making that happen. In addition, when we think about current outlook of the world, we're looking at 2 billion people, more people in the world in 2050, a 25% increase. It's a huge increase of the population. And then we also see that there's some underdeveloped areas that are continuing to improve their living standards. Now, I'm going to take a note from my colleague, Dave Bluke. He shares this, and you might have heard it in maybe another form, but just some observations around the world and kind of modern living. So 16% of the world enjoys modern conveniences, sometimes that we take for granted, whether that's access to transportation fuels or the use of plastics in our day in, day out living, like milk jugs or diapers or even cell phones. 16% of the world has access to those modern conveniences. But what that means is 84% of the world doesn't. 84% of the world does not have access to those modern conveniences. And what separates that 16% from the 84% is access to affordable, reliable energy. Over 1 billion people go to sleep hungry every day. Not because of a diet fad, but because they don't have access to affordable, reliable energy. The mortality rate for children under 5 in underdeveloped nations versus nations that are developed like the U.S. is 50 to 60% versus 3%. Again, what connects this? Access to affordable, reliable energy. Access to affordable and reliable energy honestly helps elevate our living standards, our life expectancy, education, income per person. Yet billions of people, modern conditions are far out of reach. So at Exxon Mobil, we really believe that we truly have a role to play in both meeting the increased demand as well as helping with those improved living conditions, as well as doing our part, as I've said, to help reduce emissions. Now, what we project out to 2050 is that we'll see a decline in emissions of about 25%. But to be honest, we need much more in order to reach what society's climate goals are. So let's talk a little bit about how this is going to happen. How are we looking to supply energy when we look out to 2050? So I already mentioned about energy demand. Here's the reality. Even with that reduction in emissions, that more efficient operations, we still will see an increase of energy demand, call it around 15%. So then what you see kind of in this wheel is the various avenues that energy will be provided. One that's growing and growing quite rapidly is renewables. That's like wind and solar. We'll see, or we project that by 2050, we'll have five times as much energy being produced by wind and solar. And then you also see some of the emerging areas like biofuels, carbon capture and storage, hydrogen, nuclear. All of those are also going to take a huge role. But that other side of the wheel, you'll still see over 50% of what's produced to provide energy being produced by the traditional oil and gas resources. So that's a bit of the reality, because it takes innovation in order to create some of these new energy sources, and it's going to take time. So we do project that we're going to see a shifting, but again, it's not necessarily going to get to a point where we don't see oil and gas still being a key role. So with that projection, looking out to the future, to 2050, a bit of this is how do we respond to that? How do we set ourselves up to be able to respond to this challenge, this opportunity? So what we've done is kind of reflect as a company a couple of things. Number one, we've been in business, ExxonMobil's been in business for 140 years. We've been here in Louisiana for 115. Lots of competitive advantages, but that doesn't mean there's not opportunities. Some of our competitive advantages are scale, our integration, our technology, our functional excellence, and our people. One of the things that we can kind of see is that the way we were structured before, we weren't really leveraging those competitive advantages. So we have reorganized to really lean in and be able to extract more value out of those competitive advantages that just underpin the value that we can bring. So for example, in our upstream organization, we used to have like about 7 different businesses. They all had different objectives. We now have one organization so that they can be more nimble, more streamlined, to again be more impactful. Product solutions. So this is where Dave and I have become counterparts even closer than we were before, because instead of having just chemicals and refining, we now have product solutions that brings those two companies together and allows us to really leverage our integration at scale, to not do business with ourselves, to really be able to lean in and innovate and respond to the changes in the market. And then probably what's really interesting and kind of cool is the low carbon solutions. So that's a totally new business line. And that business line is looking to start up businesses that we haven't traditionally been in. So when we think about low carbon, carbon capture and storage, when we think about hydrogen, when we think about lithium, biofuels, those are all areas that still deal with molecules, because that's what we're into, the molecule side, not as much on the electron side, but on the molecule side, but totally different businesses than what we've been in the past. And so we have now restructured ourselves to allow us to be more nimble, more streamlined, and more responsive, which will create more innovation so that we can respond to the energy challenges. For the next one. So that's kind of high level. So let's break it down to Louisiana, and what does this mean for Louisiana? Being from New Orleans, being from Louisiana, I am so proud of what I see for the future for Louisiana. There is so much opportunity. Louisiana is extremely well positioned to supply the growing demand for energy. Not just that, not just in the demand for energy, but even in this low emission space. Louisiana, to me, is a bit of a ground zero, to be honest, for the world. So when I say that, why do I say that? So number one, I would say Louisiana is built for it. When you look at our geological and structural advantages, there's a lot that we bring to bear in Louisiana. We also have a significant amount of industry that already exists here. And to be honest, part of the equation to reduce emissions means to reduce emissions from those hard to decarbonize industries. Like, that's been here for, for years and years, hundreds of years maybe, but to decarbonize those industries, Louisiana has a big role that we can play in that. We have a local mature oil and gas and petrochemical industry, large economies of scale, established transportation and supply networks, and a really experienced workforce. And again, as I was talking about some of those competitive advantages, when I look at Exxon Mobil, Baton Rouge area, our scale and our integration, again, brings some unique competitive advantages that, again, will stand out for Louisiana and I think position as well. So what does that mean? That was kind of high level. So let me kind of break down a little bit of where we think the opportunities are when we start thinking about, okay, so here in the high level, what about the dollars? Where are dollars going to actually go? So two pieces that I'll talk to, and then I'll drill down even further. Product solutions, so again, that's our historical chemicals and refining organization. We're looking to continue to invest in securing our domestic energy supply. That's going to continue to be ground zero. We have to make sure we're doing that. As we're doing these advances, we got to make sure we also are keeping the fundamentals secure. But then we're going to build on that foundation and really look to innovate for the future. So what's that? Things like advanced recycling and circularity, where we can take products that would end up as waste and then reprocess them into new markets. There's another thing that we've done, actually as a corporation, we've made what I would say is a bold ambition to get to net zero by 2050. And so each of our facilities, each of our assets, including our asset here in Baton Rouge, has a roadmap on how we get there. Billions of dollars of investment in order to make that happen. Policy that needs to come along with it as well, but we have a plan, and that's key. Again, going back to wanting to lead in this space. So that's on that side of the spectrum. The low carbon solutions, as I mentioned, which is a bit of a new organization, some of the things that I've already shared that they're going to be really looking at here in Louisiana is around carbon capture and storage, hydrogen, lithium. And maybe not biofuels right now. I would say coming from Canada, actually, that was one of the places that we were investing in, a biofuels unit. And that's basically taking things like soy and canola, those type of products, versus heritage kind of fossil fuels, and making the same products, transportation products that we do today. Don't have that in plans right now for Louisiana, but again, we're continuing to make sure that we are evolving so that as those opportunities become available, we'll be right at the forefront. So let me tell you about a few projects that we do have kind of slated towards Louisiana. So this one is in the product solution space, so kind of in that refining and chemicals area. We have what we call the Innovation Suite. So that's 3 projects that are, again, looking to kind of move us out into the future, and doing this both in securing our domestic energy supply, but also looking to help reduce emissions and meet some of our ambitions. So let me start with advanced recycling. Advanced recycling. So what that is taking hard to recycle plastics, things like potato chip bags, packaging, artificial turf, those type of things. You never really think about, where does artificial turf go? goes in landfills actually. But it's taking those things that we can't traditionally recycle and actually being able to break them down to their molecular level and then reprocess them into higher value products. So that's something that we're looking to invest in here, right here in Louisiana. Now, what's cool about that is not only do you get the jobs and the economic impacts that come along with it, the supply chain aspect of that is also something that has a kind of a multiplying effect. So like, take the artificial turf. There's a company that is looking to create a facility here that would be able to process that artificial turf so that then if we build that facility, we'd be able to process it. That would be creating new jobs, a new market, new industry right here. And there's more and more of those type of examples as we're moving into different markets and different industries. Our customers are also very interested in this because if you think about it, everybody's thinking about what role do I have to play? Our customers want circular products. They want to be able to say, hey, I'm helping the environment as well because these products that I am now offering for market come from something that's been recycled versus, again, maybe something that has traditionally created more impact. So huge opportunity there. The next one is this ultra-pure isopropyl alcohol. So we produce a really pure isopropyl alcohol right now, but this would be, and Dave, correct me if I'm wrong, 99.9995. 99.999% pure. So, all right, so why that purity? So there's a couple of interesting things about that. Number one, here in Baton Rouge, our Exxon Mobil facility, we're the largest producer for isopropyl alcohol in the Bay. So we already know how to do this. But moving to that higher purity, that actually goes hand in hand with securing our kind of some of this domestic security acts that are going on ship. If you heard of that, where we're looking to be able to develop and manufacture microchips here domestically versus have to export them in. And in order to do that, those microchips that are in your phones or your vehicles, those type of things, they need to be cleaned with a really pure material like this isopropyl alcohol. So that goes hand in hand with some of the things that we're looking to do domestically. And then this last one is really cool. I mean, all of them are cool, but this last one is a new resin unit. And so this is where we would build a new resin blending and packaging facility at our Port Allen lubricants plant. We have one of our plant managers here, Bonnie, so this would go into her area. Here's what's unique. So this is a resin that has some very unique properties. It's basically stronger than steel, but lighter than steel. So when you think about the application, so it can be used all the way from coatings. So we would use this for like coatings for wind turbines. So we may not make the wind turbines. Maybe that's not part of what we're doing directly, but indirectly we're supporting that renewable, right? There's also areas where we can use it for things like rebar in construction. So if you think about the traditional rebar, again, using something that's lighter, more efficient, less emissions, right? So there's a lot that we can do in this, and even in things like some of the plastics that will go into electric vehicles. So you can see this indirect relationship that some of the things we're doing will have on the bigger picture. So to kind of maybe wrap this one up, just a couple of things that I would think about. Technology, innovation are right at the core of it, but leveraging our integration, leveraging our scale, leveraging the things that we know how to do really well day in, day out, is again meeting this and equation. Okay, if you go to the next slide. So now let me talk a little bit about low carbon solutions. I'm gonna watch my time so that bill doesn't catch me. So low carbon solutions. So this is an area that, again, is emerging for us. It's an area that we have some experience in, but kind of in where we're moving to, we're gaining a lot of experience and really looking to lead in this space. I'm gonna probably spend the most time talking about carbon capture and storage. So our low carbon solutions team is really focused on both how do you reduce emissions from our existing assets, so the operating assets that we have today, as well as leveraging that skill, that knowledge, our scale to provide solutions for industry globally. So not just for us. As we're thinking about how we can decarbonize a very hard to decarbonize industry, we're looking to deploy those solutions even broader. So huge opportunity there. Carbon capture and storage is a proven safe technology. It reduces emissions from manufacturing power generation. So essentially what it does is it takes CO2 emissions, they're captured, transported by pipeline to what we call suitable geological formations, and then permanently stored deep underground. Think about it. We take carbon out the ground, process it, and put the carbon back. I mean, it really is, when you step back and think about it, a really kind of almost intuitive, like that does feel like something we should be thinking about. How can we do that? Just restore it back to the ground. So here's, with where we are right now from a company perspective, we already have agreements in place with 3 major companies to process their CO2, to basically do this carbon capture and storage. So in those, 2 of the 3 are in Louisiana. So again, Louisiana being a bit of this ground zero. So one is with CF Industries in Donaldsonville, the other is in Nucor in Convent, is with Nucor and Convent. And one of the things about the 3 commercial contracts that we have today, and this is a quote that I recently saw, but we'll capture 5 million tons per year of their CO2. That 5 million tons is equivalent to all the EVs, all the electrical vehicles that have been sold in the U.S. to date. That's a significant impact, and there's more to come there. The other thing, you might have heard about our acquisition of Denbury. What that does is basically give us the largest CO2 pipeline in the U.S. 1,300 miles, and kind of in the Louisiana, Mississippi, Texas area, over 900 miles of pipeline, with many of those storage sites being right here in Louisiana. So once again, Louisiana very well positioned. Hydrogen, that's another emerging opportunity where hydrogen can be used as a fuel. The interesting thing, when you combust hydrogen, the byproduct of that is water. So lots of great opportunities there. Now, in producing the hydrogen, the thought is you'll take natural gas and convert that to basically the fuel and CO2. And then that CO2, you can take it and do what we just talked about, carbon capture and storage. So again, seeing a reduced footprint, carbon footprint with some of these processes. Another emerging industry or opportunity is lithium. So lithium is an interesting one. Lithium is basically used kind of as one of the building blocks into batteries that go into like automotives, et cetera, et cetera. So, I mean, an oil and gas company talking about doing something that would help an electrical company. What? I mean, electrical vehicles doesn't sound intuitive, right? But again, that and equation, we think we have a role to play, and we've actually developed a process to extract lithium in a much less invasive and more environmentally friendly way. So again, an advantage that we see that we can bring our technology, our innovation to bear to help the whole picture. And I mentioned biofuels. I won't go into that one again, but again, that's another opportunity that again, we're looking at that will be part of the full puzzle here. So next slide. So talked a lot about things that are like exciting and emerging, and that will be great if we attract them. I guess I didn't share some of the numbers. When we think about some of these, I think we made a commitment to $20 billion of investment in the Gulf Coast over the next few years, up until 2027. So huge numbers, and I mean, you look further out, we're talking about projecting out to 2050. We're talking about billions upon billions of dollars, not millions, but billions of dollars. And again, we're looking to attract a lot of that investment right here in Louisiana. So let's talk about how some of this stuff impacts our community. So if you go to the next slide. So I'm going to bring this to home, and I bring this home a bit on some of the things that that has a direct impact. Of course, we know the macro stuff. We know the sales taxes and the jobs created and all those things, and that is fantastic. But when you start to even peel the onion back even further, there's even more impactful potential opportunities that can be created with some of these investments. So one I wanted to just share on that I think is really, it's something that I'm really proud of the Baton Rouge team for really driving and spearheading this. It's something that we're doing in a workforce development space. So this is called NABRITI, the North Baton Rouge Industrial Training Initiative. It's a collaboration with BRCC to bridge the gap between kind of education and industry. We have folks who are looking for jobs. We have industry that we need to have qualified folks. How do we help bridge the gap? And so what this program does is it provides no-cost training, fast-tracked, it's a year-long program, to individuals that are interested in getting into industry. Electricians, instrument techs, pipe fitters, et cetera. I had the pleasure of being able to participate in the graduation a couple of weeks ago, and hearing directly from individuals that have been impacted, I mean, that are emotional because of the potential impacts for them and their families, where there's a great opportunity to continue to look to develop our workforce. This is where it kind of hits home, the impact that can be made, not just in some of the things that you can see on the macro level, but changing one life at a time type of thing. And this is huge, right? We've had more than 550 graduates since 2012. If you go to the next slide. So talk about a couple of the recent projects that we've had, and again, some of those impacts. So this one is, we just completed up a suite of projects in our kind of heritage refinery area, which was all around modernization, kind of some upgraded technology, et cetera. What was really cool about this project, it was about $230 million over the course of about 3 years that we invested, but we were able to hire 17 graduates from this NBRIDI program. So again, you can see the linkage between the investments that we're making, the projects, and then our community. We also had over $17 million of dollars that were spent with diverse and small suppliers. Again, a commitment that we're making because we want to see our entire community benefit, as well as within North Baton Rouge, which is where we operate. We had $1.7 million spent with suppliers there. So really great opportunities as we are seeing these investments. And this is on the couple $100 million stage. I'm talking about investments to come in the billions of dollars. So again, you can kind of see some of the potential impacts. If you go to the next slide. So this is our propylene growth project. This started up in January of last year. Created 65 new jobs, 650 construction jobs. You can see the sales tax. But some of the other things that we did that don't always get kind of highlighted in the numbers, but we donated office space to some North Baton Rouge nonprofit organizations. They literally are residing kind of side by side with our folks in that facility. We supported kind of the technology industry with this virtual reality training module. So you can see some of the kids up there using it. We were actually, with the established virtual reality training labs, one of the things we were able to do once we were kind of done, the surplus items were able to be donated to like our school system and to other nonprofit organizations, including Big Buddy and Rebuilding Together. So just a tremendous opportunity. You hear the term environmental justice. You hear things that we want to do to make sure that kind of lifting all, rising tide lifts all. That's the opportunity we have in Louisiana. And being from Louisiana, I personally am not happy when I see us be kind of at the end of the polls, or depending on which poll, either at the end, the beginning or the end, but usually not on the good side, right? There is a unique opportunity that we have because of the things that we are blessed with, whether it's our infrastructure, geology-wise, the industry that already exists. There is a unique opportunity that we have. And I'm proud of where we are with Exxon Mobil, that we're not kind of just saying tunnel vision, we make traditional oil and gas, transportation fuels. We're expanding because we recognize that there's a need to do it. And so I'm proud of that. I'm proud to be a part. I'm even more proud to be part back in Louisiana, where I can hopefully do my part and continue to engage and see Louisiana move our way into the better parts of those surveys. But with that, that's really what I wanted to share today about the AND equation. So thank you. Okay, so I do have some time for questions, and I'm just going to say the hard ones I'm sending over to my co-partner in crime. I already told them. Anyway.
I'm not sure if this may have been addressed before, but in particular about the carbon capture, I had this vision of this just being put somewhere and you keep filling it up. Are we looking at ways to take the carbon and do something, like be able to take it out and move it to do other things? It may be too hard to answer right now, but I just keep having this vision of Ghostbusters, family spirits, narrative.
Yeah. So look, what I'll tell you. I am not an expert in this area. I'm more on the downstream side. So we have a lot of experience with this already. I mean, part of our upstream organization, that's what we do in the base. So we actually already have been doing carbon capture or CO2. It's just at a different scale. To your point, what might happen in the future as things evolve and someone finds maybe a use for it, I would say nothing's off the table. But our focus right now, and we have a lot of pore space, is to be able to safely store it where it can be stored kind of, indefinitely.
Thank you so much for what Exxon does for our community. I've seen that. But I have a hard question. And I'm
Dave.
worried about our aquifer. And why doesn't Exxon use this?
All right. So I knew it was going to get that hard. So all right, so there's a couple things with that. We were constructed 115 years ago. And so our sources of water at that point we're a combination. We do have offtake from the Mississippi River, but we're also these aquifers. So to change that is significant. It's not as quick as just say, oh, well, I'll just go and pull water here. What I can tell you is that we are working on identifying what can we do to continue moving to get water from the Mississippi River. And I can share with you a few things that we've done. 70% of our complex cooling towers, so a big portion of the water that we bring in, actually comes from the Mississippi River. So we already have a base that's pretty significant. We're replacing, well, there's been a 40% decrease in our well water consumption over the last 10 years, and we are actually in the process of developing a roadmap to get us there. So all of these things that we've talked about, even, you know, on the other end, lots of investment, lots of opportunities. What I would tell you is that we're committed to making sure we're doing the right things, and so we do have plans in place to identify what we can do to continue moving the needle there.
So I already heard that you addressed the part about lithium, because I know that lithium is really hard to mine and it's like poisonous, so they have to wear like hazmat suits. They have to use all type of special equipment which puts carbon into the atmosphere. But you already addressed the fact that y'all found a more environmentally friendly way to mine it. So I wanted to know what was the solution to y'all, like, because I know that it's both hard to mine it and it's hard to recycle it. So I wanted to know what was the solution for like recycling lithium.
So I don't think the recycling part. Let me see if I have some notes on that. So, because again, this isn't my direct, and I might phone a friend and my friend Jason here. He probably knows. He knows. Yeah, that Jason. He knows a lot of stuff. So the extraction process is called direct lithium extraction, DLE, and it's basically the way that you extract the lithium from the brine is really quick and efficient. So you first start with a lithium-rich brine that's pumped really deep underground. It's removed using this kind of direct lithium extraction technology, and then the leftover brine is able to be re-injected back into the reservoir. So it's a way, call it patented. It's something that we're doing, but again, it's a much safer process, and we return the brine back to the reservoir.
We have a great video I'm going to send to you. I'm going to give you my business card, but it's actually in a closed system. It's actually inside a facility.
So like, can I add to it?
Yeah.
So I also want to know, like, as far as like batteries, EV batteries, stuff that takes lithium, like that you have to turn lithium into, like, what is the plan for like turning that back into?
Do you want to come and work for Exxon Mobil? But you know what? I mean, it's a great question, because that's how we need to think. We got to think in a more innovative way. How could I maybe not have that go to waste? What are the processes? And that's what we're seeing. We have a portfolio of ideas. It is so exciting. I think it's a great opportunity to attract young people to our industry. My son, he's my biggest critic. But when I talk to him, though, he's going into engineering, and just thinking about the possibilities that oil and gas is not a dying industry. It's shifting, we're evolving, but it's not a dying industry. And questions just like that, that's what we need. We need to spark that level of innovation and creativity that will help us to reduce our footprint. So thank you. Oh, the bell is getting ready to ring. So